Well, today on the Family Answer Man, we're answering your questions about college students and adult children moving away and reconnecting with estranged family from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man program. This is David Orges here with Dr. Mark, the Family Answer Man himself. This time is designed to answer your questions commonly asked both in the counseling and church settings. Our goal is to answer general questions from a biblical worldview through the lens of our collective years and experience of education to help you, our listeners, have a stronger, healthier, and happier family. We want to thank the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. Winter's Air is located in Denham Springs and services the Denham Springs and surrounding areas. Days Smokehouse is located at 35770 LA Highway 16, north of Denham Springs. Now, this show is not a therapy session, and it is not specific advice to your situation. Mental health is a very serious issue, and family dynamics can be and often are very complicated and dynamic. For in-depth answers to your questions, we encourage you to seek professional counsel specific to your unique circumstances. But we hope that this episode of the Family Answer Man program will encourage you and inspire you to make changes that will lead to a stronger, healthier, and happier family. I am David Orges, and I have a master's in professional counseling, 18 years in ministry, and I am married with 4 amazing, wonderful kids. Dr. Mark is here, and he is the Family Answer Man. He has a PhD in family psychology, a master in clinical counseling, a master of education in pastoral counseling and theology, a master in law with a focus in mediation. He is also a licensed professional counselor supervisor, and a licensed marriage and family therapist. Well, welcome, Dr. Mark. It is good to be with you again, and today we're going to be looking at some dynamics with children that are moving out, and especially adult children, and you have some experience with that, don't you?
Yeah, not that long ago, my youngest daughter moved to Alabama, not too far away, but she took with her my 4 precious little grandchildren, and that I'm very close to, and I've been around since the instant they were born. And so we miss our little family there, but they're in Alabama. They're doing well, and they're basically just living the dream, so to speak. And we're just really proud for them and glad for them. But yeah, we do miss them. They were living literally next door to us for many years, and so when they decided to move to Alabama, it was a shock, but
that's a big change.
Yeah, it was a big change. But they're doing well, and we are glad for them, and we expect and to know good things in that area from them. So
that's awesome. That is great. Well, today on the Family Answer Man program, we have a question that came in that is related directly to that. And on the last show that we had, we talked about kids going back to school,
right?
And that was very much focused on elementary, junior high, high school kids, and it's kind of that season of the year.
Right.
And after kids go back to school, typically you see all those Facebook posts of kids in their first day of school clothes and uniforms and all the great pictures. And then the week after that, or a couple weeks after that, you start to see, oh, my baby moved off to college, my baby moved away. And so our question on the Family Answer Man today, our first one is, I have a great relationship with my young adult child that has just moved away for college. They're doing a lot better with this than I am. How do I handle my child being gone?
Yeah, that's always a unique time in the life of a family. But the reality is this: we must understand this is a very natural, very normal, and sometimes a very healthy process and stage of life. The reality, though, is that any change, even good changes in our families, brings about a depression. We sometimes forget that when our kids go off to college, or when our oldest child maybe starts the first grade or kindergarten for the first time, and you put them on that school bus and you watch them, drive off to school, so to speak. It's a time of major change, and with any change, even good change, comes a depression. That's true of a graduation. That's true of a promotion. That's true of a move. That's true of a raise in some cases. So whenever change, definitely true of retirement, but whenever change occurs and that depression kicks in, we don't always feel well. It's like a low-grade fever. We know it's supposed to happen. We know they're supposed to go off to college or to school or whatever, but it's like a low-grade fever. We don't feel right, we don't feel good, and so a depression is a reality in this situation. So first of all, be mindful that though this is healthy, this is natural, this is normal, there is going to be a depression. But be mindful that part of our job is to create a child, especially an adult child, to become independent. That is who we are as parents. We are called to train our children, to give them the skills, the instruction, the wisdom, the opportunities they need to be independent. We don't want our children to be dependent upon us. Now, there are some, I understand, that have that need to always have their child right there next to them and never want to see them go, and I understand that. But the reality is, a healthy, natural, normal process of parenting is basically to give them wings. As you know, I heard years ago, we were called to give our children wings. Now, being close is wonderful. There's nothing wrong with being close. As a matter of fact, being close is a very gracious thing. We talk about attachment. We talk about connection. We talk about the power and the importance of being close to our children, and that's wonderful. However, being fused, F-U-S-E-D, being fused with your child is not healthy.
So there's a difference of being attached and being fused.
Right. Here's the difference. Being fused is I am not going to allow my children to do anything, experience anything, enjoy anything, see anything that does not meet exactly what I want or desire. For example, let's say you love to drive a Ford, okay, or whatever, or you love to shop at Walmart or something along those lines. And your child says, well, I want to drive a Toyota, okay, or whatever.
That's a big sin around here.
Then what begins to happen is that what's happening is that is fusion. When you say to your child, you can only drive what I drive. You can only vote the way I vote. You can only see the world the way I see the world. You can only listen to the music that I want you to listen to. And so what begins to happen is the child does not get to experience basically who they are, their identity, or formulate basically who they are as a person. For example, I know a lot of dads who love football, right? And football is a great sport. I played football. And so they want their son to play football. But he says, I want to play basketball. I want to play baseball. I don't want to play football. And so the dad says, absolutely not. You're playing football because that's the sport that I played and you're going to play it as well. Or let's say even in college, a dad says, I want you to be an accountant. And again, accounting is a wonderful degree. Thank God for the accountants out there. For that. But not everybody wants to be an accountant. And so the son may say, but I want to go into physical education or whatever. I want to be a teacher. And the dad says, absolutely not. You're going to be an accountant. My point is that that's fusion. And fusion is often unhealthy because the child does not have the opportunity, and this is a fancy word in psychology, to differentiate. And they need to have that experience. If they want to go into education instead of accounting, if they want to drive a different type of car, if they want to maybe vote a different way or whatever it may be, that is, again, allowing them to have their wings. The Bible says to test all things. And sometimes our kids, and even ourselves, we need to test things to make sure that what we're doing, what we're believing, what we are embracing is right, it's real, and it's something that we want to involve and invest in our life. So the question that at the end of this question, the final concern was, how do I handle them being gone?
That's right.
And so, yes, you're going to feel depressed, you're going to feel sad, and that's natural. Again, the reality is, once again, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to maybe even go through a depression. But it becomes a problem, though, when you stay there. Being depressed is one thing. Being sad is one thing. We've all been there. But staying there is when it becomes unhealthy. So here's what, we were talking about before the show, right? And that is, it's okay to create a contact schedule. I mean, in today's world, you have FaceTime, you have the email, you have text messages, you have Facebook, you have all these things. And so you can create a contact schedule that says, hey, every Sunday afternoon or every night at 9 o'clock or whatever your contact schedule is, where you can call and you can text or you can FaceTime and catch up a little bit. Be careful about overdoing it, but be in agreement as to here's a contact schedule. Also, look at the calendar, look at the breaks, look at the holidays, and see when we're going to get together again. There's the Thanksgiving holiday, of course, the Christmas holiday. Sometimes there's a break or a long weekend before then. So again, have a contact schedule. Number two, use this time maybe to reconnect to other family members. Maybe the middle child, or maybe the youngest child, or maybe one of the other kids has not received the attention or the time or received the investment, perhaps. You didn't mean to, but they just didn't receive it because, the other children were needing you. The other child was getting ready for college. This was her senior year or whatever. But now it would be a good time to maybe reinvest and reconnect to the other family member. Now, this is the baby, and sometimes that's when it's the most painful, right? When it's your baby that's taken off.
That's the classic empty nest.
Exactly. This is a great time to reconnect with your spouse. The reality is that sometimes, and parents don't mean to, but sometimes we get so invested in the lives of our children that we don't invest in our marriage. And what begins to happen is the children almost feel a sense of responsibility of keeping mom and dad together. And that's putting way too much pressure on them. So sometimes when the kids are getting married or moving out of the house or going off to college or, going into the military or whatever it may be, this is a great time to reconnect with your spouse, to do those things y'all used to do. As Chuck Swindoll said years ago, to strike the original match.
There you go.
To do those things, maybe to travel, maybe to just, have dates more often, just to maybe take long weekends together, whatever it may be, but reconnecting with your spouse. This would be a great time to do that. Maybe also to reconnect with yourself. Maybe this is a season for you to do some things that you've always put off because you invested in your kids. You were the coach for their baseball team. You were involved in their senior year. You were doing all these things. But now that they're out of the house, maybe this is a good time for you to do some things that you've always wanted to do. Maybe you want to go back to school. Maybe you want to take a class in something. Maybe you want to travel to that place that you've always wanted to go to but never could go. I know a lot of parents who said, I want to go to Israel. I want to take a long weekend, or excuse me, a long week.
It's going to be a long weekend.
A long week, I should say, or a long vacation to Israel.
Yes,
I've always wanted to go to the Holy Land or whatever, but I never would go because, my kids were at home and, who knows what could happen. But now that they're on their own and out of the house or whatever it may be, start that business. Volunteer in that area that you've always wanted to volunteer, but you never would or never could.
Yeah, as a church staff member, and I did student ministry for about 13 years, definitely go volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
the best volunteers that we ever had in student ministry were people who their kids had moved away and they were empty nesters, and they had so much love and compassion for the students that were at here at the church that I was at, and just saw so much investment and love from empty nesters that came back and said, hey, I want to be involved in a teenager's life that I don't have to discipline, and I don't have to control their finances, and I don't have to help them with their homework, and they loved it.
And here's the thing. Sometimes that's a great connection because sometimes we have students in our student ministries, at our churches, whatever, that maybe, unfortunately, do not have parents that do care.
Yeah.
And so when that parent gets involved with that student who has parents that don't care as much, or maybe don't understand the importance of being involved or invested in their child's life, and that other parent comes in, that volunteer, what a wonderful connection we see. Because that parent whose child has moved away, they see what this student needs, when they're on that retreat or when they're on that mission trip or whatever it may be. So again, that's powerful, that's important. Yeah. Also, reconnect with God. This is a great time for you to maybe get involved in that men's ministry, that women's ministry, to go to that conference, to, teach that class, to, help, reach out maybe on the mission team or the outreach team or whatever it may be. But this is a great time to reconnect with God and just spend some time, with your Bible and with others in fellowship, and just it's okay to stay up late at that meeting or go to that early morning Bible study, because now your kids are out of the house, they're off to college. Bottom line, here's the bottom line: as both of you see the other doing well, As you see your child doing well, he or she is studying hard, he or she is, making good grades, hopefully he or she is enjoying the college life, or they're enjoying their marriage, or they're enjoying their new job, or whatever it may be. As you see them doing well, and as they see you doing well, the point is it will help both to adjust to this new season.
That's good.
Because ultimately that's what we want, right? Ultimately, that's what we want. So when you see your son or daughter, they're happily ever after in their marriage, or they're doing well in school, or they're getting that promotion in the military, whatever it may be, and you see them doing well, and they know that mom and dad are doing well, that they're not the glue for mom and dad, then both will do well in this season. And when you come together during that Thanksgiving break, or that Christmas season, or that long weekend, that is when the fellowship really is that much sweeter.
That is some really, really good advice from the family answer man right there. Making sure that that, hey, you may feel some of those feelings of depression, and that's normal. That's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's
it's right.
normal. Of course.
But knowing that we can, our goal as parents is, like you said, to train up adult children to be independent and healthy, and that there are ways that we can reconnect with other family, with our spouses, with ourselves, and most importantly with God.
Right.
And as we do that those things are going to help us adjust better to the new season.
And the reality is going to happen either through marriage, through going off to college, starting a career, moving away because that's where, your child's spouse is now working, or whatever it may be. It's a natural process. And so if you have these things in mind and these things in place, it really does help you to manage this adjustment.
The family answer man, ladies and gentlemen, right there. That is really, really good advice. Very insightful. Our second question today on the family answer man is, I'd say, a little bit related to that. You talked a little bit about being fused and having attachment, and we've talked about healthy attachment before. The question that comes in is this. It says, I haven't spoken to my father in years after a family fallout. I want my kids to know their grandfather, but I don't know how to get past old hurts. What do you do with that?
Wow, yeah. That is always, a dilemma, because it's so common, and most families really do not know how to manage that, unfortunately. And so, but the first thing I think we need to say is this, is that grandparents are indeed a blessing and a special part of our lives. I think most people, even in some very difficult circumstances, can look back over their life and hopefully see that a grandparent brought wisdom, a grandparent brought love, a grandparent brought some connection into their life. I've met a lot of people that have said to me, hey, look, it was my grandparents that raised us because my mom or my dad was having a difficult time, or whatever it may be. So grandparents, the point is, are a very special part of our life. They're a blessing in our lives for the most part, because they do bring that wisdom, that love, that connection. Family dissension, unfortunately, with that being said, is common. And this is where, this may sound a little cliche or a little simplistic or basic, but this is where forgiveness and boundaries and healing and humility have to come in. And what I mean by that is that forgiveness, and this is where I think a lot of people get a little confused, or maybe they misunderstand what forgiveness is or what it's not. But again, as my dad would say years ago, forgiveness is a great thing until I have to practice it.
Yes.
Forgiveness is a great thing until I have to practice it. And so with that being said, I think we still have to be mindful that forgiveness in any situation, in any relationship, especially in families, is the oil. It is the oil to the engine. Because there's going to be friction. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be differences of opinion. There's going to be times when, you're having a bad day, or you're having a bad attitude, and you say things or you do things that you don't mean or normally wouldn't say or do. And so forgiveness is that oil that helps with that friction. So here's what I think forgiveness is and what it's not. And this is where I think a lot of people get things kind of confused and misunderstood. But what forgiveness is, I think in its basic definition, simply is this. It's simply saying, you don't owe me. You don't owe me. You don't owe me an explanation. You don't owe me, money. You don't owe me, any situation or circumstance that has to, we have to kind of come back to and relive or whatever. You don't owe me you don't owe me. And so forgiveness is saying, I'm forgiving the debt, bottom line. I'm forgiving the debt. It's saying, I am willing to let the debt go. I'm willing to let this go. I'm willing not to hold this against you any longer. And that's forgiveness. I'm not going to bring this up again. People say all the time, well, I can't forgive and forget. And I say, hold on. Those are two different things.
Right.
Forgiving is something that we choose to do. Forgetting is a neurological impossibility because it happened. It's etched in your brain. It's there. It will come up in your memory. But here's the thing. You don't have to bring it up. And you don't have to, again, use it against the person to get your way. I see that all the time. Maybe a husband and wife, parent, child are in a situation and they're trying to, get what they want from the person, and they'll bring up that old past, that old hurt, that old situation to kind of use it as leverage to get their way. But forgiveness says, I'm not going to bring this up, and I'm not going to use it against you. So this is what I say to couples all the time. How do I know you've forgiven? How do you know you've been forgiven by that person? Well, they don't bring it up anymore, and they don't use it against you. So again, it's not forgetting, but it's not dwelling or stewing in it any longer. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not going to stew in this any longer. And it's saying, look, let's move on. It may create new boundaries. There may be, some new boundaries that have to be formed, but it's okay because you're saying we're moving on. We understand what happened. We're going to heal this, and we're going to create these new boundaries. And in some cases, it is reconciling. Some cases, it's making the relationship even stronger. But in some cases, reconciliation may not occur. Doesn't mean you're not forgiven or that you haven't forgiven because you've let go of the debt. You're not holding them against them any longer. But in some cases, it may not be that reconciliation has actually occurred or taken place. But bottom line, in this situation, grandkids can bring families back. As the children come into our lives, as grandparents begin to want to be a part of the grandchild's life, this is a wonderful thing that maybe causes the entire family to restructure. And maybe they can come up with some new attitudes and some new boundaries and maybe even create a new life. So again, the bottom line, though, is that forgiveness is key. Humbling yourself is key. And doing it for the sake, again, of your children and for your grandchildren. Here's what we all want. What we all want is we want as many people to love and to care and to be invested and to be connected to our children as possible. The more people that love them, the more people that care for them, the more people that are connected to them, the more people that are protecting them, the more people that are investing in them, I will argue the better off they're going to be.
Yeah, there's Richard Ross is a professor at Southwest Seminary, and he did a longitudinal study, and what they found out was that every kid that has a healthy, by most standards, has a healthy life. They noticed that every kid needs 5 significant adult influences in their life that are not their parents.
Exactly.
So in addition to their parents, so having a healthy mom and a healthy dad is irreplaceable, but having 5, grandparents, coaches, teachers, neighbors that are good influences, those type of people.
Student pastors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Student pastors.
Yeah, 100%. And so having grandparents that are active and involved in a healthy way is it's invaluable for.
And this is one reason why, we in some churches have baby dedications, some churches have christenings or baptisms, whatever you want to put it. But basically what we're saying to our church family when that happens is that we want you to be a positive, you being the congregation, we want you to have a positive influence in the life of our child. Because people in that congregation, that's going to be the Bible study teacher, that's going to be the youth leader, that's going to be the small group leader, that's going to be the choir director or whomever that's in that congregation that is going to be investing in the life of that child. And that's so very powerful and so very important. So you're right, grandparents, coaches, teachers, pastors, student pastors, really kind and gracious neighbors. I mean, those people that are involved in our child's life and very influential are crucial, but grandparents definitely definitely play a huge part. So whatever that situation may be, I just want to encourage them to forgive, to let things go, to no longer hold that debt against them, and then to just embrace what that child needs in the life of that grandparent.
And so I love what you said, that, forgiveness is that you don't owe me.
You don't. That's, I think, the original basic definition of forgiveness, saying you no longer owe me.
And forgiveness is not, well, I just completely forgot what happened, or it was okay. That's not what forgiveness is. But forgiveness is beyond that.
It's never saying it's okay, but it is saying, you know what, I am not going to hold that against you. I'm not going to say that you owe me any longer. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to forgive that debt. And I'm not going to hold it against you, meaning I'm not going to bring it up anymore. I'm not going to use it as leverage anymore. We're going to move on, and we're going to be fine.
That's right. And, forgiveness is one of those things that, especially throughout the Bible, we are instructed to forgive. Not suggested, not a good idea. It's something that we are instructed to do as followers of Christ. And with his own example, Jesus being the one that has forgiven the most.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But for us, it's difficult to forgive, and like you said, I think it's because we sometimes have maybe a skewed perception of what forgiveness is. Not just pretending like everything's fine, everything's okay. It comes with new boundaries sometimes. Sometimes there is reconciliation, and sometimes there isn't. But that doesn't mean there can't be forgiveness.
Right, that's right. And most of our listeners know what I'm about to say. But forgiveness oftentimes is not for the person that you're forgiving, but many times it's for you. Because as you let it go, you no longer carry those feelings and those emotions on your shoulders. You've let it go. You're no longer also not allowing that person that you haven't forgiven to be in control of you. Because as long as you have not forgiven them, they have that control over you. Because now what begins to happen is that forgiveness, if you don't let it go, if you don't bring it in, creates now a bitterness. And so the bitter people that you see in your life are oftentimes people who have never forgiven that son, that daughter, that spouse, that parent, whomever.
Yeah.
And their lack of forgiveness, again, creates that bitterness, and that's not a good way to live.
It's amazing to think that forgiveness is just as much or, if not more important for the person that is giving the forgiveness than it is the one that's receiving. So the Family Answer Man, some really good insight today, some deep things to think about and put in place and practice. And so I just want to say thank you, Dr. Mark. It is always a pleasure and insightful to be with you, the Family Answer Man. We want to thank you as well for listening today and for joining us. We also want to thank the incredible people at Winter's Air and Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats for underwriting today's show. Winter's Air, again, is located in Denham Springs. They do great work, and they service the Denham Springs area, and they're really good people. Also, Days Smokehouse and Specialty Meats, again, great people. Days is located at 35770 LA Highway 16 north of Denham Springs. And as a reminder, this is not a therapy session. We can't speak directly into your situation with specific advice, but mental health is a very serious issue. Family dynamics can be and often are complicated and very dynamic. So for in-depth answers to your questions, we want to encourage you to seek professional counsel about specific and unique circumstances in your lives. We hope that this episode of the Family Answer Man will encourage you and inspire you to make the changes that will lead to a stronger, healthier, and happier family. We also want to let you know that we love hearing from y'all. So we have had people that have written in, we have had people that have emailed and said how much they appreciated this show already, and we have received your questions and hopefully have answered those and will continue to do so. If you have questions or feedback, you can email us at thefamilyAnswerman@loumc.org or soundradioinfo@milldale.org. We would love to hear from you, and thank you again for joining us on the Family Answer Man.